Hello and welcome to another SkyGlass how-to video. In this video we're going to talk about the watch list. And this is going to be pretty in-depth, so it'll be a little bit longer, budget your time accordingly. Okay, so when we first open up SkyGlass, you'll most likely be dropped into military mode with auto refresh on, so we'll go ahead and start there, and these sort of panels are the basic panels. Okay, and the watch list is activated with this banner icon here. So if we click on that, you'll notice that we have no aircraft added to the watch list, so it's empty. So let's quickly add some things to the watch list. There's a few different ways to do that. First way is to hover over any aircraft, and you'll see that the details will pop up on the top right here into the what I call the heads-up display, or the HUD. Okay, and you'll notice there is a banner icon as well. Anywhere in SkyGlass that you see a banner icon, that's going to be related to the watch list. Okay, so we've got the HUD details populated here. If I click on the banner icon, then you'll turn green and you'll see that it drops into our watch list, into an unassigned group. All right, so let me do it another way. If you are hovering over an aircraft and you right click, that's also another way to quickly add it, from the field. You'll also notice a couple things happen. The border and the background of this aircraft changed to indicate that it's on a watch list, so a special colorization for aircraft that are on your watch list. Okay, so I'm just going to pop through here and add a few more to the watch list. Let me grab a C-17 or two. All right, and that's probably enough to start with, and let me increase the size just so we can see this really easily. Oh great, so let me describe the watch list details. It looks like we got an emergency that just popped up. Let me turn that off. Okay. All right, so let's start from sort of the bottom up. So in each aircraft entry into the watch list, we've got basically sort of three groups. We've got the aircraft icon with a tiny little indicator of its last elevation change. If it's climbing or descending, you see the climbing is green and descending is red. Level flight is gray. And then this next group is the sort of the label and the detail about that aircraft. We'll go into that a little bit more in a second. And then we've got a group of buttons here, and we'll go into detail those in a moment as well. This grouping has, the first part of it is the aircraft label, and that is defaulted to the transponder hex code. So the first part of that before the bar shows the aircraft label. The next section is the call sign that it's flying under, or the last known call sign, and then this last one is the aircraft type that's reported from the transponder. Okay, so this is an editable field, so let's go ahead and do that now. The edit button is the pencil on the page there. Let's click on that, and this brings up a new window, shows the current label. So let's see, E6s are, TACAMO, so we'll say this is TACAMO 1. And I'll go ahead and click on the save button, and you'll notice that label is now changed to what I just entered. So this is how you can name an aircraft in a more meaningful way to you and track what it is. This call sign for most military flights is going to change every flight. For most private aircraft, those are the tail number, the registration number. So these you do not edit. Those are automatically updated every time this aircraft flies. The type usually isn't going to be updated because that's consistent with, from the aircraft. But anyway, moving forward. Okay, so if you wanted to remove this icon from the watch list, there's a couple different ways to do it. You can, if the aircraft is displayed in the HUD, you can click on the banner again, and that will remove it from the aircraft, or from the watch list. Let me add that back on. Or you can click on this minus sign banner icon in the watch list group itself, and that is going to dump it into sort of a trash can, a deleted group. And that's just sort of a safety mechanism in case you did that by accident and you didn't want to delete it. You can move it back into your standard group or any other group. You'll notice I did something interesting there. I dragged it and dropped it. So let me do that again. So let me move this into the deleted group. If I grab the icon itself, I can drag it into any other group that's listed, and then it will move it into that group. All right. So we've covered the remove from, we've covered the edit. If you click on this button, this will draw the trace for each aircraft that's in the watch list. And then this button, if you have the database loaded, it will show some more detail about that. So let me go ahead and do that now. We'll load the database, and we'll give that a second to populate. All right, so while this is happening, let's edit the group and create a new group. All right, so let's say we want to create a group for these K-35Rs, these fuel tankers. So I'll click on the edit button, and that's going to bring up our edit window, and then you'll see we've got this assign to group with a drop down. Now the drop down only has the single group here because that's the default. Oops. All right, so let's add. Click on the add sign, and then we're going to enter a new group name. So we're going to call this the Fuelers. I'm going to save that, and you'll notice that created the new group, dropped it in there. So we'll just go ahead and save that out. And then we can also do the same thing. We can bring up the edit window and use the drop down, or we can just drag it. So let's drag this aircraft into that group. All right. Next thing, let's see, we covered all of that. Let's talk about secondary searches. So let me stop auto refresh. I'm going to burn the field. You'll notice if the watch list is up, it's going to automatically query for those aircraft, even though we've cleared the field. If the watch list is up, it's going to go ahead and already automatically look for those. Now you'll notice we know these aircraft are flying, but they're not showing here. They're showing gray, showing they're not active, whereas the flying aircraft, those that are being tracked at the moment, they're showing up in white. Okay, so there are several ways for the watch list to populate for SkyGlass to go and look for aircraft locations, and generally it's done in large batches. Okay, but these are just the particulars and limitations of the data feeds. Let me talk about this HUD for a second. There's a tower icon here which opens up a panel in the HUD here. Let me turn off the pop-up help, and this area right here, that shows some deeper details about the transponder type and the ICAO category that's being reported, what nav mode it is, etc. And the important part that we're looking at here is the source type. All right, so notice that all the aircraft that are flying right now are either going to be MLAT or ICAO. That means they're part of the ADSB system, and MLAT means multilateralized, meaning it's got several feeders that it's being covered with or being reported by, or it's got this ADSB indicator. All right, so let me turn on the secondary search. We can do this a couple different ways. You'll notice we'll do that for this TACAMO here. We're going to click on edit. You'll notice we've got a secondary search toggle here, or we can use the magnifying glass and the plus sign. So I'll click on that so you can see that's activated now. Secondary search is activated. I'm going to reload the watch list, and now you'll see the TACAMO is showing up. So if we go and we load the HUD information, you'll see this is mode S. So this transponder is in a different mode. It's not in ADSB mode, it's in mode S, which is not captured in the regular batch processing. So if you add something to watch list, but you're not seeing that it's showing up, you can add a secondary search to it. Let's reload, and you'll see it will probably pick it up, because the cost here, the hit is when you do secondary searches, those are performed one by one. So if you've got hundreds or thousands of aircraft on your watch list and a bunch of them are being secondary searched, they're going to load as fast because they can't be run in batches. They have to be individually searched. So the other way to think about this is if your watch list is taking a long time to load, you probably have secondary searches enabled. Okay, so let me talk about a little bit more about the secondary search. You can also activate and deactivate the secondary searches in the header. And you'll notice this doesn't actually toggle. What it does is it flips them. So you'll see that if I click on this button, it now, if it was not secondary search, now it's on, and the one that was on is now off. So let me disable that one. So they're both disabled, and now click in the header and you'll see now they're both on. Okay. All right. So let's move forward. You'll notice we've got the groups with the group headers with a different colorization. If I click on the header itself with my left button, you'll notice that the header color changes and the field changes. Now we're in isolate mode for just that group. So if we click on the isolate mode for that group, you'll see that also comes back up. If I click on it again with my left button, it's going to disable the isolate mode for that group. There's also a hide mode, so sort of the opposite of isolate. If I right click on that, you'll see the group header turns red and only the other group is showing now. If I right click on that group as well, now nothing's showing because we've got them both turned off. Clicking on them again disables that mode, whether it's an isolate or hide mode. Okay, so that's again left button on your mouse will turn disable and enable the isolate or hide mode. Okay, so let's talk about the watch list header group headers a little bit more. This is how we can easily change the name of that group. So there's a couple different ways to do that. You can edit it here, or you can add the new groups using that button in the aircraft edit panel. We talked about this already. This is to isolate, turn on, off isolate mode for the entire group. This button here will remove the group completely and delete all the aircraft. Okay, so it's kind of like burn for the group. And then this one will activate flight history mode for that entire group. So this is if you have a fleet sort of defined in your group. You click on that button, it will preload all of those hex codes into the flight history panel. And I'll cover that in a different video. We won't take the time now. Okay, and then the last part, last couple of areas, this shows the number of flying and the aircraft count for the total group. And then this last button is simply a collapse and expand. So we can collapse the groups and expand them to sort of optimize our viewing. All right, so let's talk about the watch list header now. In the same way, we've got a count of the full watch list here. So since it's kind of short and everybody's flying, we've got 6 of 6. This button loads the watch list. This next button turns on and off auto refresh. Let's do that now. You'll notice when we turn on auto refresh, we get its own little countdown timer indicator. Okay, this button here, switches modes in the display of the watch list details. So you'll see that the label remains the same, but what it does is it goes and looks up the last known location and gives you sort of a meaningful vector and direction. So, Takamo here is 57 miles from Port Isabel. There we go, a little bit better now. 87 miles southeast of Port Isabel. This one 8 miles northwest of Homestead Meadows in Texas, etc. So if you want to see the last known location, kind of scan through quickly and kind of see where everybody is, that's the way to do it. Let's disable that back into standard viewing mode. This button will activate all traces for all the aircraft in the entire watch list. Okay. Instead of just by the group, and you'll notice all the aircraft icons, the trace icons will update. All right. This one you'll probably use a lot of. This one disables or or shows only those aircraft that are flying. So let me show you this. Let me turn off the secondary search for the TACAMO. I'm going to reload. Let me burn the aircraft, and that's going to force a reload. And you'll notice now that TACAMO is not listed there because we've got only aircraft that are flying to show up in the list. So let me disable that. You'll notice now we can see the TACAMO listed. If I click on this show only aircraft or only active aircraft, there we go. Then it's going to, it doesn't remove it from the watch list. It just doesn't display, so you can, have a very, show only those aircraft that are flying in your watch list at any one time. All right. And then this aircraft, this icon will expand and collapse everybody. So that's kind of a quick way to, collapse or expand all the groups at the same time. All right. And then this final button activates the sort of secondary other features of the watch list. So let me talk about those real quick. Let me expand the groups. And let me turn that guy back on and reload so we see everybody. Okay, great. Turn on auto refresh as well. All right, so if you want to manually add aircraft into the watch list, so let's say somebody shared a hex code with you, or you pulled it off from a different website, click on that, and you'll see you can enter the hex code here, and then click the plus sign to add it to your watch list. All right, this icon is the backtrack function, and so let's say you've added a bunch of aircraft from the watch list via the database, okay? That will, meaning it wasn't added live, so there isn't any last known location, okay? The backtrack function will troll and kind of crawl back through the history in the history of all the ADSB exchange data and find its last known position, and you can change the date, how far back that looks via the preference panel. I'll show you where that is. So we open up the preference panel and you can see the flight history options. Backtrack, the default is 60 days, and we can change that all the way up to 2 years. All right, so let's bring this back to, let's make it like 30 days. All right, so that does a backtrack if an aircraft was added and we don't know the last known position. All right. This next icon button will automatically group based on its type. So we can see, and what it's going to do is it's going to grab anything that's in the unassigned group. So it's not going to move something that's already been grouped, okay, but anything in the unassigned group, it's going to move them into a new group based on the aircraft type. So let's do that now. Click on that button, and now you see we've got a bunch of new groups, and so all the BE-20s are in their own BE-20 group. And the C-17s, another E6, etc. So that's the sort of fast way to group aircraft by type, and then we can change the name of that group by clicking on that edit button and saying, all right, this is a heavy. All right, and you'll notice that the order it moved because this is all alphabetically by group. The groups are alphabetical. Okay, moving forward. So if you wanted to import a group that was watch list that was shared to you, you can use that button here. And then we've got a couple different options. We can replace it, meaning everything that's in your current watch list will be gone and it'll be replaced by the new watch list, or you can simply add it to the list. If you get stuck here, we can just say, we'll say add, and then when this button opens up, you can just say cancel, and you're this is how you get out of that import process. If you want to export your current watch list, click on this button here, so you can share that with someone else. This, let's see, resets all groups to normal view. Right, if you have some groups isolated and some not isolated, like this, we click on this reset button, and that brings everybody back to normal view. All right, if you have secondary searches enabled, this is a quick way to disable all secondary searches for the entire watch list. Let me add a couple more like that. You'll notice, click on this, and we reload, and all of the secondary searches are now disabled. All right, so that's a quick way. Let's say you import a list from a friend and it's taking an extremely long time to load. You can, it's probably due to the secondary searches being enabled, so you can quickly disable them all from here. All right, and then this last button, this is just delete your current watch list, and it's going to throw up a warning. Are you sure you want to do that? So let's say no. All right, so we're almost done. The last piece here about the watch list is this sort of kind of a UI feature. We can click and resize the watch list by this 4-arrow handle, and you'll notice there's also a couple of up and down. If we click on the up, what it does is it's going to resize the watch list to cover exactly, you know, all that's listed here. So if we turn on this so it shortens the watch list a little bit more, and we click on that button again, it resizes to cover only what's listed here. Now be mindful about the expanding and collapsing here. If we collapse them all and click on that button again, it makes it a little bit smaller. Let's expand them all, click on this button again, and again it resizes to show whatever, you know, the full extent of the list, however it's you know, specified to display. Okay, this bottom button basically minimizes the entire watch list. Let me turn off the extended functions there, and you can see, so that's sort of the quick way to like hide your watch list but keep it up and running, is to use these up and down chevron arrows. Okay, also note, if you double click on this handle itself, does the same thing. Double click, it's going to minimize, double click again, and it pops it up to the maximum size available. All right. Okay, so let's see. Oh, let's do one more piece. Didn't cover this database information for each aircraft. So the first thing we want to do is, you notice the database has already been loaded, and this pops up a new panel which gives more detail about it. And if you notice, we've got a little icon of a clipboard that shows up on certain fields when you're hovering. Okay, and if you click while that clipboard icon is active, then that will simply put that data onto the watch list. So if you wanted to you know, share this with someone, you can click on that. Now that this hex code is on my clipboard. All right. All right, I think that covers all the basics with the watch list. Hope you enjoyed. If you ever needed any help, please jump on the avrlabs.com website, use the Need Help button, and I can help you there. All right, enjoy SkyGlass. Cheers. Have a great day.